Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Waterflame, or well, my real name is Christian Krogsvold. I've been a composer for 10 years and I'm joined here with my friend Denny.
Hey, I'm Denny Schneidemesser and I also work as a composer, though like slightly different background than him actually, because I'm more from a film background and also just slowly slide into games, where he has been doing that the entire time and is probably way better.
Yeah, absolutely. I've pretty much solely made music. And yeah,
games. Tell me about those games.
Oh yeah, we can mention a little bit about the games we've actually made music for. So a lot of you might have heard of Castle Crashers. That's the big one, and Geometry Dash. Although that's been for better or worse. It's a mobile game, and yeah, there's a bunch of other titles. And yeah, Flash animations, not to mention. There's probably hundreds of those.
Yeah, I had those too actually.
Yeah, absolutely. We both have a background in Newgrounds. That's like where it all started, I guess.
Don't go there.
Well, yeah, actually do go there. Because the site needs more people. I feel like it's a shame that it's dying. I mean, that's kind of a little bit off topic, but we can get back to that. So yeah, we wanted to talk about a little bit about how it is to be a self-taught composer, because we both just pretty much went in blind after school with this, and we have no education. Well, no musical education.
Perhaps that too, but I was there, but I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, well, this is not, we're not trying to say, I mean, stay in school, kids. That's not, but yeah, we both pretty much just started off on our own, because we had a passion for music and we wanted to, create our own worlds and our own music. And I can't speak for you, but me personally, I felt like if I went to a music school, I would learn a lot about music history, but also be constricted by the rules that came with that. So I just started to play with it and have fun after school, and yeah, I guess it kind of was a little bit the same for you.
Yeah, it's basically been the same for me. I've actually realized just recently that the proper way to probably attack this is to actually get interested in music first and play around it with your own, and perhaps then study later on.
Yeah, you
kind of get the knowledge
do that
later
too.
on. But I never actually got to study because I applied to schools, but I was usually too poor to actually get into them.
Yeah.
Because studying in the US as a European, it's a pretty expensive undertaking, and I think I couldn't have pulled it off on my own, and there were no rich parents, so yeah, I just had to look into everything on my own. And what I actually did was I slowly eased into film scoring, which actually came to me kind of through people that I got in touch with.
Yeah.
I would almost say you never really determine your path from the beginning, but you just get into something at some point when you're meeting the right people.
Well, yeah, actually it's kind of a different story for me, because pretty much ever since I played the game Dynamite Heady on Sega Genesis when I was 6 years old, I knew what I wanted to do.
So, determination, yeah. There it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always loved video game music because I feel like it's more expressive, it's telling more of a story, and it's painting a landscape without the vocals telling you what to feel. Well, that's what I think personally anyway.
Yes.
So it's very very expressive, I would say. And I was captivated from the get-go, and I just started doing it as a hobby, like after school. I never really went full force to begin with. I'd say that the most important thing has always been for me just to have fun with it and experiment.
Oh yeah.
And the sort of kind of red thread here is that we approach it with different angles, but I guess with the same thing in mind, that we both wanted to do this on our own. We weren't satisfied with the way that we were supposed to approach it, I guess.
Yes, that was pretty much the case for me too. I thought that if I just had enough experience that at some point someone would approach me, or if my music was at some point good enough that someone would approach me at some point. But I also learned that I kind of had to go out myself and be on GDC, for example.
Well,
that's stupid talks.
I mean, that's probably why most people are here, to find job opportunities and we'll talk to people in the industry, absolutely. So, my first, I guess we could talk a little bit about how it turned from a hobby to something more.
Yeah.
Because for me it was a very slow, gradual thing that just that happened over time. I was never really planning for it, but like we mentioned earlier, we started on Newgrounds. That I'm saying was again.
It was secretly positive for me, but I declined it.
Yeah, right. Well, for me it was kind of like finding a sanctuary online, because the whole premise of the site was that everyone there just share their creative experiences and works and try to help each other.
Yeah.
And I actually started with animations, but I quickly found out that was my thing. I wanted to do music. And anyone that listened to my music on the site could also use it for their animations and games. And it was sort of like everyone just agreed that we would share everything on that site, and I think that's what made it great.
Yeah, great. Sometimes my actually first upload was used in an animation of a large dick pic.
Oh,
it just you couldn't tell what it was, and the camera zoomed out and was like.
Well, I guess you had a bad first experience.
That was my first experience with Newgrounds.
Yeah. Well, it's also known for its crude humor, but I think that's a part of the expression that there was no there was no filter there, right?
Yeah. No, it wasn't.
Yeah. And so I remember I just made music every day after school, and when I started getting a job, I had a part-time job, but I also did music like half of the time. Half of the time, all the time, basically.
Yes.
And I always wanted to get more into the video game industry, so I tried to join competitions and stuff that was going on that page, and just slowly, first and foremost, the most important thing for me was just to experiment and try new things. So as soon as I felt like I understood something, I went to the next thing. And I think, a lot of people ask me on PMs like, emails and things like, I want to start making music, what do I do?
That's a common one for me too, actually.
And I always, it sounds pretty cheesy, but my reply is always have fun with it and experiment, and if you don't think it's fun, if you're thinking about making money, you're not really gonna make it.
Yes.
Because you have to love what you do, because you have to be prepared for doing it 8 hours every day for the rest of your life. And it's kind of like,
That's what actually happened to me when I, or at least I saw something like that when I happened to be at one pretty large university in the US. It might or might have not been the Berklee College of Music. And I basically met a couple of students, and I could really tell that they were actually forced into this because their parents were musicians and they wanted their children to make music too.
Yeah.
And it was actually something really sad, because I listened to a lot of the music, and you notice that those were basically class assignments that they followed, rather than pieces that were actually coming like from their, I know it sounds cheesy, from their heart.
Yeah, exactly. The thing I was trying to avoid. So we sort of approached this in a different way later on in life, where when I started to get noticed, get a little bit of traction, and had some pieces in games or animations that wasn't hugely popular, but people started to know who I was anyway. I quickly realized that I was not just protective of my work because I loved it, because I thought it was you know, I had so much fun with it, it felt like it was mine.
Yep.
So it's always an important thing for me to keep all my rights to my music, first and foremost. And because of that, well, actually, there was this one case that almost scarred me forever. I made one little loop. I think it was called the Skyfight loop or something.
Okay.
It's still on YouTube. It's very bad, but
I'll go look it up.
yeah.
You gotta look it up.
Feel free. But I actually made this for a little game, and the license was exclusive. And that just haunted me, because I just realized that I gave away something that I made, and it was never going to be mine again.
Yeah.
And I hated that feeling way more than any amount of money I could have gotten from that track. So I started to do things where I would share as much as possible. Anyone could use my music for pretty much anything. Wherever they wanted, but no one would ever get all of the rights to the music. And I think that's a big part of why I got so widespread and why it got popular, because anyone could use it. There was no restrictions, right? Because what I feel like a lot of people do wrong is they come right out the gate and two people know them, and they're not going to give away anything.
Yes.
Right? So how are people ever going to know who you are if no one uses it and no one talks about it, and you're just sitting there on your things, right?
Yeah, and that's actually what brings us to the next thing, to kind of have a foot out there. And I think one really great portal that most people actually underestimate, especially composers, is YouTube. Because when you think of music, you actually think of portals like SoundCloud. What else is there? SoundCloud, and also
well, yeah, I'm kind of stumped now myself. I mean, there's a lot of music pages out there. Yeah, but there's SoundCloud and there's YouTube. Well, there's Neurons. It still exists, by the way. It's not like, I feel like we're talking about it like it's our
I'll acknowledge it, but it can exist.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, YouTube is definitely a great place to put out stuff. But I feel like what is important to mention first is that, I'm getting a bit stuck here. Do you want to?
Yeah, YouTube, most definitely. Something that most people actually don't know about is that YouTube is actually the biggest online, or just generally the greatest, the biggest social media network.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when people say social media network, they think of Facebook, they think of Twitter, and
actually, Facebook is the place that YouTube videos end up on. You know,
usually if they don't up in their own crappy player.
With those bar where it says "lol, this is me in the morning." Lol.
Yeah, and a smiley emoticon next to it.
Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of places you can go yourself. But we really also wanted to shed some light on how we took some different routes. We're going on a little bit of a tangent here.
Yes.
So I kind of swore to just do everything myself. I was not going to have an agent. No one was going to help me. You know, I was going to do everything myself. But you kind of did it in a little bit different way, right?
I was picked up by an agent after being somewhat I don't want to say successful, but someone else actually uploaded my music on YouTube.
Oh, there you go.
And he got successful with it, but I was the one ending up to be contacted by an agent, and I thought actually that was the greatest thing ever. I mean, you get an agent, what can go wrong from here? You'll score Hollywood movies from this.
From the sky's the limit now.
Yeah. And I didn't score Hollywood movies, and in fact I didn't score any movies after signing this, and the problem is actually that in the moment I got the agent, I actually felt like I was a bit in a comfort bubble, because I was actually trusting someone else to kind of represent me and spread my works, because I was constantly pushed into that corner of belief that I myself wouldn't be able to approach people.
Right.
And I'm sure that that's not the case with all agents out there, but it's easy to get into that sort of mindset to believe that you now have someone like almost like a parent who kind of looks over you, and you don't want to go out there on your own because it's a dangerous world. At least my agent just kept telling me it's a dangerous world out there. You just want to be careful with everything.
I mean, of course the agent would tell you that. I mean, you're paying him.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a pretty big share. It might be 20%, which is way too much. But it's. I would. If there's something I would suggest, then it's definitely going out there on your own and don't be tied to anyone. I mean, if there's like a cool collaboration you can get into, then definitely do it. If your other part has just as much talent as you have, then it's probably a great opportunity to actually work with someone. But don't be. I wouldn't recommend to be to make the same mistake as me and actually end up being dependent on someone at some point.
Right.
And that sort of dependence, I also projected it on my like scholar career. In terms of, I was like really wild about studying music. I applied everywhere in the US, and I actually managed to get scholarships. But even with those scholarships, it was still too expensive for me. And so I had to figure out most of it on my own. And just by going to like-minded people and just surrounding myself with them, like my good friend Tony Pantoja back in the days, he was just a buddy that I knew from MSN. Now he works on How to Train Your Dragon 3 and is signed with DreamWorks and does like amazing things. And
that's not announced yet.
Yes, okay.
Don't say that.
It is on IMDb. So
Okay.
I'm free to say. He might give me story details that I'm actually not allowed to ramble about. I'm actually not allowed to say he gave me story details.
Well, it's on camera.
No, we cut that thing out.
Yeah,
That's okay. We have editing.
Well, we can do it.
Okay.
But yeah, absolutely. I was kind of more afraid of that whole world. I'd heard stories that, oh, I signed with a label and now they basically own me, you know, and things like that. I was very scared of getting into a situation like that. That's not to say that labels are a bad thing. I mean, I've seen people race past me.
Yes.
Both in popularity and success, but they also admit to that it comes with a creative cost. So I guess you have to ask yourself what you want, where you want to end up, what is the end goal, right?
Yeah.
So and also what kind of composer do you want to be? Because me, it was always a goal to be the video game composer, and for you went more the animation and film route.
Yeah, definitely. Animation was a big one for me.
Yeah, and then there's the third one that is probably best suited for another conference, which is the artist route, where you aim for the charts instead, right?
Yeah, that's almost like the Thomas J. Bergeson approach. Two Steps from Hell, if anyone's familiar.
Oh yeah,
It
yeah.
should be.
Also started on Newgrounds.
Really?
2 Steps from Hell?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah.
Holy crap! I didn't know.
Wait, am I wrong?
You might actually be wrong.
Whoops.
I think I would know that actually, but I think they actually started out with Nick Phoenix and Thomas J. Bergeson getting acquainted, but that's another story.
Yeah. So one example I wanted to mention is like when it goes right and not having a publisher and not having an agent. I want to use the example of a song I made. This was my first ever assignment. I was contacted on this page, Newgrounds, from a Mexican startup company that was making like speak and spell games. And it was pretty much determined from the get-go that this would be one of those games that you find in the $2 bin at a supermarket. Like it wasn't very ambitious, right? But I was ecstatic because I was 16 and it was a job, you know. And I made a lot of tracks for them. And one track being a track I just called Jump Stomp Loop.
Okay.
I don't know. It was a loop. It was just like a funny little little track, but it was under a non-exclusive license. So that meant that I owned the rights and I could do whatever I want with it later. So that had, later on, I remade it a little bit because I liked the melody, and I renamed it Jumper, and put it on Newgrounds. And you know, a few years later, Castle Crashers came out, and that was one of the tracks that the team, Tom Fulp and the guys, wanted to have in the game, and that got wildly popular from that. Most people knows it as the Forest entrance theme.
Yeah.
But that was still a non-exclusive license, and that song had gotten like really popular. At that point, a lot of people knew of it, and because of this, when Geometry Dash came out, this was also one of the songs that was picked for the game. It's a music game, for those of you who don't know it, where you basically make levels to a piece of music and you're trying to dodge things, and it's highly addictive, and
kind of like the Rayman games that Ubisoft did, like the music stages.
Yeah, or you know, Osus, that Mania. It's in that vein.
Actually, I haven't played Geometry Dash myself.
No, it's very frustrating.
Okay.
I mean, I can't complete the game at all.
Right.
It's super hard. Anyways, that is still. I still own all the rights to this one piece of music, but it's been around everywhere. I mean, me personally, I can't stand even thinking about the melody now because it's been 13 years. But that's an example of how that approach is done right, where I still feel like I have full artistic integrity over that piece of music, but it can still gain you an income and a reputation, I guess.
And this is actually like a very important point, passive income, and how important it is for a composer actually.
Absolutely.
I was also in Castle Crashers, almost, with a very popular piece of mine back at the time. And I didn't actually get into it because I had signed a deal with a major trailer label to license that certain track, so it wasn't open to be licensed for Castle Crashers. Now, the paycheck that I got for this specific track that was exclusively licensed would have probably been overshadowed by what I had gotten in revenue from Castle Crashers and other opportunities that would have come up during that time.
Right.
So I think it's for every composer, it's very important to just actually, I would personally say, keep your rights. I know there's a lot of folks out there that do a lot of library music, and I know they're doing like really well, but you need a fairly high amount of production music to actually cover all of that you will have your music placed at some point. And I know that can be really exhausting. I actually had a friend working on some horror album for 6 months. And I do remember that he probably made a really good money for it, but the price was that he was basically completely depressed for these 6 months, and he felt really unfulfilled, and had a rough time going. And what to me is basically the more fulfilling route is to make something for yourself, put it out there, and just like if you need revenue from it, then just go the non-exclusive route.
Yeah. That being said, though, the path I took, it's not necessarily sustainable on its own. This was a part-time job for the longest time, right?
Not sustainable if you're in Norway.
Well, yeah. But that being said, you don't get the fat paychecks from doing a non-exclusive deal, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't sell off the music, right? So you kind of put yourself in a situation where you're dependent on other sources of income as well. So that's, for me at least, where YouTube comes in, and Spotify, iTunes, and also doing commission work here and there.
Yeah.
So it's more like a accumulated many small sources of revenue that makes up the income.
Yeah.
And again, it comes down to what kind of music composer you want to see, or you see yourself as, and where you want to end up, like what you're okay with doing. Because I don't think that any of these paths are necessarily wrong. but you might end up doing something you really regret or you feel unhappy with. Right.
Exactly, with a certain decision. Then,
Yeah.
And I would say that to get back to the passive income path, that YouTube is actually a very good route to take, because
Yes.
you had a face.
Yeah,
You were about to disagree, but
yeah, I mean yes, but it also comes with a lot of policing and a lot of you have to. It's like a jungle out there, and you have to dodge all of these. Not just the algorithm, which pretty much just does whatever it wants.
Yeah, I learned that.
And then it's people re-uploading your things, people using it for things that become other things, and you do also put yourself in a situation where yes, you have to be your own manager. You have to allocate some time into actually protecting your own work, and some people might find that very stressful. But I find it personally more rewarding because I learn a lot more from it. So I can say with certainty that I have these rights and I don't have these rights, and that should be done in that way, and so forth, basically because I've gone through all of this myself. But all of these rules are also constantly like subject to change, right? So
Yes, always.
Yeah, so you gotta be on top of that as well.
Mostly. So I was curious if there's any composers in the room and they have some certain questions, then we're absolutely open to it.
Yeah, I mean, we were thinking that the rest of the segment we can just do questions from the audience.
Yeah.